They teach you to build armor, layer by layer of anger, of ambition, of sheer unyielding will. But what if the greatest vulnerability you possess is the armor itself? What if true invincibility is not found in being unbreakable, but in becoming untouchable? You have been given a flawed map of power, a map drawn by the loud, the desperate, and the fearful. It tells you that to be invincible, you must become a force of nature, a human battering ram. You are taught to forge your mind into a weapon, hardened, sharp, and relentless. You are told to charge headfirst into obstacles, to meet resistance with overwhelming force, to let your roar be so deafening that it silences all doubt, all opposition, all nuance. This is the gospel of the brute, the path of the charging bull, convinced its power lies in the fury of its momentum and the sharpness of its horns. It sees the world as a series of gates to be smashed and matadors to be trampled. This approach is intoxicating. It offers the seductive promise of immediate, visible results. You push and the world pushes back, and in that friction, you feel alive. You shout and others fall silent, and you mistake their fear for respect. You drive forward, leaving a wake of broken relationships, missed opportunities, and collateral damage, and you call it the price of ambition. You believe you are a tank, an unstoppable engine of will, defined by your ability to endure and inflict pressure. You see compromise as weakness and stillness as death. Every interaction becomes a contest, every disagreement a battle, every day a war to be won through sheer attrition. You build your mental fortress with walls of stubbornness, believing that to be unmovable is to be strong. You confuse rigidity with resilience, but look closer at this path. It is a shallow and costly victory. The charging bull is a spectacle of power, but it is also a model of predictability. Its great strength, its linear, unstoppable charge, is its greatest weakness. The strategist, the matador, does not need to match the bull's strength. He does not build armor or try to stop the charge head-on. That would be madness. Instead, he simply observes. He studies the bull's rage, its predictable patterns, its blind commitment to a single course of action. And with a simple, effortless sidestep, he lets the bull's own momentum carry it to its doom. The bull exhausts itself fighting a phantom, goring the empty air, its power utterly wasted because it was never properly directed. Its force was formidable, but it was unintelligent. This is the fate of the mind forged as a blunt instrument. It is exhausting. It runs on the volatile fuel of emotion, anger, pride, frustration. It requires constant conflict to feel powerful, constantly seeking new walls to break just to prove it still can. It creates enemies at every turn, planting seeds of resentment that will one day grow into forests of opposition. The world it creates is loud, chaotic, and eternally unstable. The unbending tree is the first to be snapped by the storm. The rigid sword is the first to shatter against an unexpected shield. The mind that relies solely on its own hardness will inevitably meet a force greater than itself, or it will simply crack from its own internal pressure. This is not invincibility. It is a glorious but hollow path to self-destruction. It is the illusion of power mistaken for the real thing. The ancient masters of strategy understood a different truth. They knew that the greatest power is never the one that makes the most noise. They taught that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without ever fighting. Read those words again. Not to defeat the enemy in a glorious clash, but to make the fight itself unnecessary. To win so quietly, so completely, that the victory is settled before the battlefield is ever chosen. This is the path of the true strategist. This is where the forging of an invincible mind truly begins. And it does not begin with the hammer and the anvil, beating the soul into a hardened weapon. It begins with fire, yes, but a different kind of fire. It is the fire of purification. A controlled burn that melts away the impurities, the ego that demands recognition, the anger that clouds judgment, the fear that rushes you into foolish action, the impatience that prevents you from seeing the whole board. The goal is not to create an unbreakable sword. The goal is to forge a perfect, still mirror. A mind so clear, so calm, so devoid of internal distortion that it can reflect the world exactly as it is, not as you wish it were or fear it might be. The first tools of this master are not the battering ram and the megaphone. They are silence and observation. The conventional mind speaks to impose its will. The strategist is silent to understand the will of others. He listens not just to the words spoken, but to the hesitations between them, to the ambitions they betray, to the fears they conceal. The conventional mind acts to demonstrate its strength. The strategist observes to find the critical point of leverage, the path of least resistance. He understands that a river carves through a mountain not with brute force, but with persistent, intelligent pressure applied to the softest stone. He watches, he waits, he learns. He understands that true invincibility is not an external quality. It is not an armor you wear. It is an internal state of being. It is the citadel within, perfectly governed. You become unstoppable to others the moment you stop defeating yourself. You cease to be vulnerable to external attack when you have conquered your own inner turmoil. Why would the taunts of an enemy matter when you have already silenced your own inner critic? Why would the pressure of a deadline incite panic when you have mastered your own sense of time and urgency? The strategist wins the war within himself first. Every day in the quiet moments of reflection and discipline, he is waging and winning the only battle that truly matters. This is the great reversal of power. The world expects the roar of the lion, the charge of the bull. It does not know how to contend with the stillness of the mountain. It is confused by the formlessness of water. By refusing to play the predictable game of force against force, you move outside the opponent's calculations. You become unreadable. Your strength is not in your visible actions, but in the depth of your preparation, in the clarity of your perception. You do not need to smash through the gate when you have already been given the key. For brute force leaves a trail of destruction, while true invincibility leaves no tracks. It wins before the battle ever begins. Comment "silent victory" to internalize this principle, and subscribe to learn how to forge your inner citadel. The citadel you have built within must be governed by principles, not by passions. An ungoverned fortress, no matter how strong its walls, is merely a prison for a chaotic mob. The silent victory you seek is not an accident. It is the inevitable result of deploying a strategy so subtle, it operates beneath the threshold of your rival's perception. This is the domain of invisible warfare, fought not on the fields of overt conflict, but in the silent theater of the mind. Its two foundational pillars are absolute knowledge and profound formlessness. One is the map of reality. The other is the ability to traverse it without leaving a single footprint. Let us first speak of knowledge. The common man hears the command, "Know your enemy and know yourself," and he nods, believing he understands. He mistakes information for knowledge. He gathers facts, statistics, and gossip. He studies his opponent's past victories and assumes they will be repeated. He sees the surface, the persona, the mask presented to the world, and he bases his strategy on this flimsy caricature. His knowledge is a two-dimensional sketch of a three-dimensional reality, and so his plans are brittle, his actions misguided. He is fighting a ghost of his own creation. The true adept of strategy understands that knowledge is a far deeper, more piercing discipline. To truly know an adversary is to conduct a silent dissection of their spirit. It is to understand the architecture of their pride and the foundations of their fear. You must learn what they hunger for, not just what they say they want, but the deep primal cravings that drive their decisions when they believe no one is watching. Is it recognition? Is it security? Is it control? The answer to this question is the key to their entire operating system. You must study their habits not as isolated actions, but as rituals that reveal their inner rhythm. How do they react under unexpected pressure? Do they lash out in anger, or do they retreat into indecisive silence? The former is an adversary who can be baited. The latter is one who can be paralyzed. This level of knowledge is not found in spreadsheets or reports. It is found in the quiet spaces. It is gleaned from observing what is not said, from noting the flicker of envy in a subordinate's eyes, from understanding the subtle currents of loyalty and dissent that flow through their organization. You must become a scholar of their vanities. The praise that makes them soften, the criticism that makes them rigid, these are the levers by which their judgment can be manipulated. Sun Tzu taught that the entire art of war is based on deception, but the most potent deceptions are those that an enemy inflicts upon himself. By understanding his deepest biases and desires, you do not need to invent a lie. You simply need to present a version of the truth that he is already desperate to believe. The truly invincible mind does not waste energy crafting elaborate falsehoods. It merely holds up a mirror to the adversary's own delusions. And what of knowing yourself? This is the more difficult and therefore more critical half of the equation. It is a ruthless, unflinching excavation of your own soul. You must map your own internal landscape with the cold precision of a cartographer. Where are your mountains of pride? Where are your swamps of insecurity? What are the hidden triggers that can flood your judgment with the blinding torrent of emotion? The strategist who does not know his own weaknesses will have them revealed to him by his enemy on the field of battle, and by then it is too late. You must wage war on your own impulsiveness, your own sentimentality, your own lazy assumptions. You must place your own ego on trial and cross-examine it without mercy. Do you pursue a certain path because it is wise, or because it will prove someone else wrong? Do you avoid a conflict because it is unnecessary, or because you are afraid? Be brutally honest in this internal accounting. The first duty of a commander is to not be a traitor to his own cause, and the most common form of treason is self-deception. Only when you have achieved this dual clarity, seeing the enemy as he truly is and yourself as you truly are, does the path to victory become clear. Preparation is not the act of sharpening your sword. It is the act of making the sword unnecessary. Your invincibility is forged in these countless hours of silent, meticulous study, long before the moment of crisis ever arrives. When the challenge appears, you do not feel the shock of surprise. You feel the calm recognition of a scenario you have already visited 1,000 times in your mind. This brings us to the second pillar, formlessness. If knowledge is the light that illuminates the path, formlessness is the art of walking it unseen. Sun Tzu taught, "Be subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby you can be the director of the opponent's fate." What does this mean in practice? It means you must become like water, or better yet, like a mist. An adversary can prepare to fight a lion, a fortress, or a charging army. He can build defenses against a known quantity, a predictable shape. But how does one fight a mist that surrounds him? How does one strike a target that is everywhere and nowhere at once? The conventional mind is addicted to form. It craves a solid identity, a predictable plan, a clear methodology. It announces its intentions through its habits, its routines, its very posture. It is a rock. It is solid, impressive, and utterly immobile. It can be studied, measured, and with the right application of force it can be shattered. The formless mind refuses this rigidity. The process of forging the mind, as we discussed, is one of purification, and the ego is the primary impurity that creates a fixed form. The ego demands to be seen as strong, clever, or decisive. It attaches itself to a specific plan and views any deviation as a failure. It is this attachment that makes you predictable. To be formless is to burn away that attachment. Your objective remains constant, but your method is eternally fluid. You are neither aggressive nor passive. You are simply responsive. You are a mirror, reflecting the opponent's actions back at him. You are an echo, using his own sounds to confuse him. When he expects you to advance, you might simply wait. When he prepares for a complex maneuver, you might employ a devastatingly simple one. You drain the energy from his attack by offering no solid surface to strike. You flow around his defenses, seeping through the cracks he did not even know he had. You are not a single entity, but a dynamic process. Consider a practical application. In a negotiation or a professional conflict, the formed individual enters with a rigid list of demands and a singular strategy. His opponent quickly learns his rhythm, anticipates his arguments, and builds a defense. The formless strategist enters with only a clear objective and an empty mind. He does not argue. He asks questions. He does not demand. He listens. He allows the other party to reveal their entire strategy, their fears, their non-negotiable points. He adapts his own position in real time, appearing to concede on minor points while guiding the entire conversation toward his ultimate, unspoken goal. His opponent feels as if he is winning, punching at the air and meeting no resistance, only to find at the very end that he has been gently guided into the exact position the strategist desired from the start. He was not defeated by force. He was enveloped by intelligence. This is the power of being unreadable. This is the strength of having no shape. Your invincibility is not a shield that repels attacks, but a quality of profound elusiveness that makes an attack impossible to land. You have been shown the principles of knowledge and formlessness, but these are instruments, and an instrument is useless in the hands of one who is not its master. A map is of no value to a captain who cannot command his own vessel through a storm. The most profound battlefield you will ever command is not in the world of men and their ambitions. It is the silent, sprawling territory of your own consciousness. For it is here, in this inner domain, that all victories are born and all defeats are conceded, long before they manifest in the material world. To master others, you must first achieve absolute sovereignty over yourself. The untrained mind is a kingdom in perpetual civil war. Its throne is occupied by a succession of short-sighted tyrants. Rage is a clumsy brute who seizes power in an instant, smashing valuable alliances and exposing critical weaknesses in a fit of pique. Pride is a blind and arrogant advisor, whispering flatteries that lead you to underestimate rivals and overestimate your own strength. Fear is a saboteur, working from the shadows to cut supply lines of courage and flood the capital with whispers of disaster. Impatience is a foolish prince who demands action now, squandering resources on premature attacks and abandoning sound positions for the illusion of progress. These internal insurgents are the true enemy. An external adversary can only present you with a challenge. It is your own internal traitors that turn that challenge into a catastrophe. The common man believes the path to self-control is suppression. He tries to cage his anger, to deny his fear. But a caged beast is still a beast. Its power is not gone, merely contained, and it rattles the bars of its prison, draining your energy, waiting for a moment of weakness to escape with even greater ferocity. The strategist does not suppress. He deposes. He achieves mastery not through force of will, but through the piercing light of awareness. He learns to detach, to step back from the throne and observe these emotional usurpers as they rise. He watches anger emerge, not as his anger, but as an anger, a wave of chemical and electrical energy passing through him. He observes it without judgment, studies its texture, its triggers, its predictable arc, and in doing so, he robs it of its power. An emotion that is observed is an emotion that can be managed. An emotion that is identified with is an emotion that takes command. This is the forging of the unshakable inner calm. It is the practice of becoming the silent witness in the theater of your own mind. When you achieve this state, the provocations of the outside world lose their sting. An insult cannot find purchase, for your ego is no longer on the throne to be wounded. A threat cannot induce panic, for fear is no longer your counselor. You realize the ultimate truth: your opponent's greatest weapon is your own reactivity. He does not need to defeat you. He only needs to provoke you into defeating yourself. By mastering the internal kingdom, you disarm him completely. You take away his most potent and reliable tool. Your serenity becomes your shield, a profound and disconcerting stillness that his attack simply cannot penetrate. From this foundation of internal tranquility, you begin to shape the world's perception of you. This is not an act of deceit in the vulgar sense. It is not about constructing a false personality. It is the art of strategic revelation. Since you are no longer a slave to your own impulses, you are free to choose what you project. You become the master of the mask, not a single mask, but an infinite collection, chosen for the specific psychological terrain you face. Sun Tzu's most misunderstood teaching is to appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. This is the pinnacle of psychological warfare. When you hold a decisive advantage, when your preparations are complete and your knowledge is absolute, the worst possible action is to display that strength. To do so alerts your rival, puts him on the defensive, and forces him to act with caution. Instead, you project an aura of mild confusion, perhaps even incompetence or weakness. This is a lure. It invites arrogance. It encourages your adversary to overextend, to become complacent, to reveal his final intentions, because he believes the game is already won. You allow him to build a narrative of his own superiority, a narrative he becomes so invested in that he cannot see the trap closing until it is far too late. His own pride becomes your greatest ally. Conversely, when you are at a disadvantage, when your resources are thin and your position is vulnerable, the most disastrous course is to betray that weakness with anxiety or desperation. Here, you project an image of immense, unshakable confidence. Your calm becomes a weapon. Your silence is interpreted as deep calculation. Your rivals, peering across the battlefield, see not your precarious reality, but the projection of your will. They hesitate. They ask themselves, "What does he know that I do not? Why is he so serene?" This hesitation is everything. It is a moment of doubt that can stall a fatal attack. It is a window of time that you can use to recover, to adapt, to find a new path. You are not faking strength. You are demonstrating the genuine strength of a mind that is not dictated by external circumstances. This mastery of perception extends beyond the simple binary of strong and weak. It is about becoming an enigma. You must be inscrutable. Your motivations should be veiled, your next move impossible to predict. You are the calm surface of a deep lake. They can see their own reflection, their own anxieties, but they have no idea what lies in your depths. By projecting nothing definitive, you force others to project their own assumptions onto you. The fearful will see you as a threat. The arrogant will see you as a fool. The cautious will see you as a master strategist. You allow all these interpretations to coexist, for in their confusion lies your freedom of movement. Over time, these calculated projections, born from an authentic core of self-mastery, coalesce into something far more potent, a reputation. Your reputation is a specter that walks before you. It is your silent ambassador, your invisible herald. It enters rooms and negotiates on your behalf before you have spoken a single word. This reputation is not built on grand gestures, but on the accumulated weight of 1,000 small, consistent actions. It is forged in the promises you keep and, more importantly, in the threats you never need to make. It is in the insult you absorb without reaction, the crisis you navigate with unnerving calm, the information you possess but choose not to wield. Every disciplined decision is a stone laid in the foundation of this monument. This shadow, this reputation, becomes a passive force of immense influence. It creates a gravitational field around you that shapes the behavior of others. Rivals will think twice before challenging you, not because they fear an outburst, but because they fear the quiet, calculated, and devastatingly effective response they have come to expect. Allies will grant you their trust because they have witnessed your consistency and your immunity to panic. Your name becomes synonymous not with aggression, but with consequence. The ultimate power is not the ability to win any fight, but the ability to create a reality where most fights are no longer necessary. Your reputation becomes the ultimate deterrent, a silent testament to the unconquerable mind that forged it. You have learned to prepare in the shadows and to govern the fortress within. You have mastered the art of perception and built a reputation that precedes you like a silent vanguard. Now, before we unveil how this cultivated mind achieves its final, decisive effect, ensure you are subscribed. The ultimate wisdom is not for the spectator. It is reserved for the dedicated student who completes the entire journey from apprentice to architect of his own reality. The moment of execution, when it finally arrives, is the most misunderstood aspect of strategy. The uninitiated imagine a climactic confrontation, a dramatic crescendo of force. They envision the final bloody charge that breaks the enemy lines. This is the theater of the brute, the spectacle of wasted energy. For the true strategist, the decisive stroke is nothing like this. It is silent, swift, and almost anticlimactic. It is less like a battering ram striking a wall and more like a single, perfectly placed pin that causes an entire complex structure to collapse under its own weight. It is the culmination of all your preparation, the physical expression of a victory already won in the mind. Sun Tzu spoke of this quality of decision as being like the timely swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Contemplate this image. The falcon does not engage in a prolonged, exhausting struggle. It does not challenge its prey to a contest of strength. It soars high above, patient, observing, a master of its terrain. It is invisible to the creature below, which goes about its business, oblivious, secure in its perceived safety. The falcon waits for the precise moment of vulnerability, the instant of distraction, the slight misstep, the momentary isolation. And then, it does not attack. It simply releases itself to gravity. The strike is a fall, an effortless, inevitable descent. It is a moment of pure, focused, and final commitment. The struggle is over before the prey is even aware it has begun. This is the nature of your decisive action. It is not an act of aggression, but a release of cultivated potential. It is timed not for when your power is at its peak, but for when your adversary's vulnerability is most profound. And this vulnerability, you will find, is almost always a result of their own character flaws, which your formlessness and knowledge have patiently allowed them to expose. Their arrogance has led them to overextend their resources. Their anger has made them predictable and reckless. Their fear has caused them to fortify the wrong position. You did not create these weaknesses. You simply observed them, refrained from interrupting them, and perhaps even subtly encouraged them by presenting the exact illusion they wished to see. Your final action, therefore, is rarely a direct confrontation. It may be a single, well-placed word that shatters a fragile alliance. It may be the revelation of a single piece of information, held in reserve, that makes your rival's entire position untenable. It may be an act of calculated inaction, allowing them to walk confidently into a trap of their own making. The effect is one of sudden, shocking, and irreversible change. The opponent does not feel as though they have been defeated by a superior force. They feel as though the very ground has given way beneath their feet. The strategist does not conquer the enemy's castle. He pulls the single stone that causes the entire foundation to crumble. The victory is not loud. It is a quiet, resounding click, the sound of a lock turning, the sound of a new reality snapping into place. What follows this moment is the true test of the master. The common victor celebrates. He gloats, he boasts, he distributes the spoils. This is the act of an ego starved for validation, an ego that was uncertain of its own success. The celebration is a release of tension, a catharsis for the anxiety of the conflict. But for the strategist, there was no anxiety. The outcome was a calculated eventuality, and so, in the aftermath, there is no celebration. There is only observation. You stand back and watch the consequences of your action unfold, like ripples spreading across a still pond. You do not interfere. You do not explain. The action itself was the only statement necessary. The true prize of your victory is not the defeat of your rival. It is the new landscape that his defeat creates. Your objective was never merely to win a single contest, but to establish a lasting and favorable peace on your own terms. By acting with such precision and apparent effortlessness, you have done more than remove an obstacle. You have sent a message. You have demonstrated a capacity for foresight and execution that discourages future challenges. Your reputation, once a shadow of potential, is now a monument of proven fact. Potential challengers understand that any open conflict against you would be foolish, not because they would be met with overwhelming force, but because they would be contending with an intelligence that operates on a plane they cannot fully perceive. They understand that by the time they recognize the game had begun, they would have already lost. This is the essence of deterrence. This is the enduring peace. And so we arrive at the final lesson. The journey to forge an invincible mind is, in the end, an internal pilgrimage. The mind becomes invincible not when it can defeat any opponent, but when it no longer requires an opponent to define its own strength. You set out on this path seeking a way to ensure no one could stop you. And the ultimate revelation is this: no one can stop you because your journey is no longer contingent upon the consent, the cooperation, or the conflict of the external world. You have built an engine within that is fueled by your own discipline, your own clarity, your own unwavering purpose. You are no longer pushed or pulled by the chaotic currents of others' ambitions and fears. You are the river, carving your own path to the sea. The supreme power is not a throne defended by armies, but a throne that no one would even think to approach. Its power is not demonstrated through force, but through a profound and unshakable serenity that makes the very idea of conflict seem vulgar and unnecessary. You have not become an unstoppable force. You have become an immovable center, a point of stillness in a turning world. The conflict has become irrelevant because you have transcended the battlefield itself. This is the invincible mind, not a weapon to be wielded, but a universe to be inhabited, a citadel of peace so profound that its gates need never be closed.